Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. While I was at CitizenCon, I was able to talk to Tracy, Luke Presley, Dave Coulson, JLee, Zyloh, Brian Chambers, John Crewe, lots of various devs for ships, networking, tools, cinematics, animation and more, and even Erin and Chris Roberts. This is a big dump and compilation of my notes on various questions that I was able to ask during CitizenCon, and a lot of these questions were from my community, and this video will largely cover a load of random bits and bobs on ships, AI, and gameplay. So ships and vehicles to start with. CIG are working on various ships for both the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42's needs. A large portion of the ship team is working on Squadron 42 ships and structures, leaving around 20 dedicated Persistent Universe ship devs. There are some ships and vehicles planned to come straight to Flyable, as well as some new concepts over the next 12 months. I mentioned ships like the Black Widow Heavy Fighter, Redeemer rework, Goldfinch 200 series battlecruisers, Titan suits. They were all met with smiles and nods and head tilts. They weren't giving away any specifics, unfortunately. They want to flesh out basic ships for each of the alien races that they currently have, so they are working on a Xi'an cargo ship and Tavaran fighter. At least they are in early concept. There are also ships and vehicles planned to fill out other roles, such as ground mining vehicles and a refinery ship, things like that. But they expect a lot of ships to fill most roles in the game. Specific ship statuses were unable to be answered beyond the roadmap stuff, so 3.8 will see the Argo Mole potentially at launch. Some ships are delayed in the 3.8 branch though, and they're going to come a little later after launch. So January will see the Cutlass Red, February the Carrack, and March the Prowler. For Alpha 3.9 Q1 2020, we will see the Cutlass Blue and Drake Vulture flyable. In 4.0, so Q2 2020, we'll see the Hercules Starlifter. Now, we could certainly see more ships in 3.9 and 4.0 than are currently listed, straight to flyable, all that sort of stuff. So priorities for ships. Some ships are worked on because they're needed for Squadron 42 at the moment. Others are sort of worked on based on changing priorities, whether or not they think they can fit certain ships in before they've got a major ship planned later on, stuff like that. So they do keep on switching priorities and changing bits. Sometimes people from ship teams get pulled off a team, so they took some extra time, it seems, on the 890 jump to get it ready, which has caused a delay to the Carrack, things like that. So water gameplay is still planned. Shorter term, this is going to be swimming, but they are R&Ding various tech for wave simulation. They're looking at buoyancy for ships and water interaction with ships. I couldn't get a reconfirmation and reaffirmation of water-specific vehicles though, but it does sound like it's the longer-term goal to have water exploration and ship, sort of like all vehicles that are specific for water potentially in the future. We'll have to wait and see. Ships will continue to receive small updates with lighting, materials, assets, balance, and other tweaks, but they do not build ships with a rework in mind later, so not anymore anyway. They want to get ships to their as fleshed out state as possible when they release them. So older ships typically got reworks and stuff because they were using older techniques. They hadn't fully built the interior before building the exterior, things like that, and that caused them to have to rescale ships, like the Cutlass as well was entirely reconcepted, or at least largely rebuilt. The Redeemer is awaiting an entire reconcept, but they want to minimise these larger reworks in the future. Physicalized components is a major update that they have planned. We should be seeing more about this in the future. Same with modularity and stuff with ships. They are getting more customization, aftermarket customization, modular changes to ships. They are all being worked on at the moment. Capital ships shouldn't cause frame rate issues in the future either. They are able to break up sections of ships' exteriors into individual levels of detail, LODs, so that they can have different LODs running at different parts of the ship. Stealth gameplay for ships will be managing systems, the environment, and avoiding detection. They are planning this much more in-depth scanning mechanic, and lots more to be coming with scanning in the future. They also will allow you to turn off your lights, or at least they want to, so that you are harder to spot visually by players. Let's move on to some AI stuff. They have been working on a lot of AI improvements for the Persistent Universe, and we should start to see a lot more throughout 2020, but there are some improvements in 3.8 as well. It is a big task getting AI working in the Persistent Universe, and server-side object container streaming has allowed them to develop a lot more of the core of the game and move towards what they want for AI more as well. So they are working on getting AI part of missions and interacting with players more. This can have NPCs flying ships that our players are on, or turn up during ships, call in reinforcements, stuff like that. They're now able to have NPCs move on and off ships, basically crossing the physics grids between ships, and that's been a major mountain that they have climbed effectively. AI behaviors and combat capabilities for them are a focus currently. They are working on AI prerequisites for having you to be able to hire NPC crew and AI modules firing weapons on ships. Animals are still a thing. We should start to see simple ones when they're ready. I know that's not a great answer, but that's the answer I got. They have already talked about the ranter who leaves dung in caves, and the oni crabs, we should start to see on Hurston at some point. But yeah, animals are still a thing, and they will have their own schedules. They are going to be treated like NPCs. Gameplay stuff. So they are planning on platform persistence for Alpha 3.8 and onwards, which will mean that there is a reset with 3.8 going live. But after that, there should be significantly less resets. They are able to potentially and hopefully save players Alpha UEC ships and items that were bought in a game and then transfer them to the next major patch. But they may still sometimes reset the database, and some major patches will still need a reset potentially. There are various features not shown that are still on their internal roadmap. Some of these features are surprises, others are being worked out and they don't know where they will land, others are already part of other things that they've got mentioned on the roadmap, but they don't go into the specifics of the gameplay of them. Some are more minor things and missions, stuff like that, and others are actually quite big gameplay loops apparently, which we will see in 2020. Dynamic weather is planned for 2020, some form of release of that. Land claim and associated gameplay has received some work, but they couldn't give me any specifics on it. I was looking for someone that might know more. Basically, it seems like they've been working on a lot of features and they've been working through a backlog, and some features are part of longer term plans they can't talk about, and others are in the backlog and they'll get to once they are prioritized again. They do reprioritize features every so often, however, they're getting much more stable in their sort of like predictions and guesstimates and roadmaps and that sort of stuff for both mid and long term roadmap solutions. So hopefully we should see many more of the features in 2020 actually come to fruition when they say they're going to. A more fleshed out salvage gameplay mechanic should be possible in its version 1 implementation as well, because of the staggered development sort of process. They are hoping they can get more in there than they originally intended. They want to get that in for Q2 2020. They've been working on other star systems, the procedural tech and planets V4 tech. They've built that stuff out now, and it allows them to build out areas much faster. They're getting version 1 of server-side object container streaming in Alpha 3.8, and this helps them with the larger gameplay area, but also a huge amount of core tech that was being bottlenecked for content getting into players' hands. So they were able to develop lots more of the game, and they've been working on a lot more stuff, but getting actual gameplay into our hands that's working on the servers and that's not like really overly buggy and super slow required them to get version 1 of server-side object container streaming out. Now, version 1 is going to be by no means finished. Expect a lot of bugs through the PTU phase and lots of improvements going well into 2020. This does lead them on to further improving tools and working on server meshing through 2020 as well, but we should see significant improvements in some of the content releases because of server-side object container streaming. They weren't very specific on what that meant, unfortunately, but we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. We should see a new star system, Pyro, assumedly, in 2020, but they've been working on others too. They have been working on mapping coordinates, location sharing, some form of navigation type stuff, but they weren't willing to share specifics beyond that. Flight model-wise, they feel that they have all the components they need to get the flight model into a good place over the next few quarters now. And I've lost my notes on some of that topic, so take that with a bit more salt. But I remember talking about it being a very polarized topic, and they are building something at the moment without all the core features in yet, but a robust structure for the flight model so that once the core features come online, like physicalized components, they are able to refine and rebalance the flight model to be appropriate for combat and the needs of the game. So it didn't sound like they want to redo the flight model at any point again now. They are just going to keep on with what they've got. But again, we'll have to wait and see exactly what they do with that. They have improved the room system that tracks environmental data and composition of what gas is and all that sort of jazz is in a room. This can be used on a planetary scale as well now. You can literally have biomes controlled by the room system, and I suppose that will take into account dynamic weather in the future. I asked about ship depressurization and had a dev say that they worked on it for or with Squadron 42 with it, but that was about all they could say. I don't have any more info on that, unfortunately. Expect lots of quality of life updates to quantum travel and group play. They want the ability to be able to set party permissions to not treat party members as criminals if they accidentally shoot or destroy a party ship. Basically an ignore friendly fire checkbox that you can set as party leader. So you can set that on and off. They are vastly expanding out the new law system, and there's going to be iterative changes as well, but they've got lots of changes planned for it. They plan to build out the universe with 120 plus systems overall over a huge period of time, potentially. But basically, they're not going to have 120 systems at launch or anything like that. They are moving towards some cargo improvements over the next few patches. They'd like to have more physicalized, interactable cargo systems as well, though. I just want to bring up that number of 120 systems thinking about it. That was a number I mentioned because I'd heard it before when I was talking to a question and the dev didn't correct me. So it might be 100 plus systems, but I talked about 120 plus because I vaguely remember the lore team suggesting that they had 120 or so written down a couple of years ago. When I asked about crafting and self-sufficiency, so basically are players able to live in lawless systems by building an outpost and then just sort of like make their own food, fuel, munitions, all that sort of stuff. I was told to watch the Tony Z economic panel, and they couldn't share anything about that sort of stuff yet, but it sounds like they might be thinking about that now. CIG are working on R&D with lots of things, from ship stuff to gameplay loops to missions to new tech. Some of this makes it into the game. Other bits might help influence or build a feature later on, but you will see interesting missions based on some of the R&D that they've been doing over the next few patches, potentially. I asked about tractor beams, and all of my notes said, lots of ships have tractor beams. That's all I got from the devs on that. Lots of our ships have tractor beams. Okay. I vaguely remember them saying it's not too different from the mining beam stuff in some regards anyway, but it didn't sound like they were planning to release tractor beams within the next couple of quarters. Distortion in EMP weapons will be reworked and improved in the future for their intended roles, as will things like E-War and various other mechanics that aren't in the game properly yet, but they are focusing, I think they said, in the short term on scanning gameplay, that sort of stuff. Proper beam weapons are still a thing. They are working on Vulcan integration currently. VR should still be a thing, but they weren't able to talk about VR directly beyond sort of like, that's what I think the plan still is, and we're looking at it, sort of stuff. It feels at the moment that VR is very much an afterthought, which maybe that's the correct way to look at it at the moment. They need to get Squadron 42 Episode 1 out and the Star Citizen Precision Universe out in some state, and then maybe do VR after that. We'll have to wait and see. Event-wise, they had 100 volunteers that volunteered for the event from the community. 51 showed up and were appropriate and stuck it out, and that's sort of like the expected range, apparently. I would like to say that those volunteers were legendary people. They worked a huge amount of hours, were very tired, and very, very industrious. There was a saying of assume nothing from the devs leading up to the event as well. There were some other questions and bits that I found out that will be part of other videos in the coming days, and a couple that I just need to double check the validity of. But that was a load of my notes kind of splurged out at you for some of the questions I asked at CitizenCon. I do have some videos of me talking to some of the devs, see if they've actually come out. So hopefully I'll be able to get a load more CitizenCon content up over the next week. And then we will move on to probably 3.8 content, because I would expect they'll be moving towards first wave PTU potentially by then, end of next week if we're lucky, maybe the week after. We'll have to wait and see. But I hope that was informative. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to see that in the comments below. I do stream on Mondays and Fridays, answering as many questions as I can. And all of those answers are, we don't know, or I expect it might be this. So some of them are sort of like me talking about what I think it might be, but where possible, I will answer questions accurately, because the devs have talked about it a lot, sort of like a load of different features that people might not know about, people might not read jump point, or have watched the, you know, thousands of hours of Star Citizen content and read all their articles and stuff like I have. But some of you probably have as well, so thanks for watching anyway. A quick bit of shilling as well. Shadow provide remote access to high-spec gaming PCs as a subscription service, so you don't need to maintain your own gaming PC. You can leverage the power of your internet to turn your phone, tablet, laptop, or home PC into a monster. They are taking pre-orders for their new hardware configurations, scaling for 4K gaming, up to 32 gigs of RAM, and a GeForce Titan RTX, which I am very much looking forward to playing Star Citizen on. Links below, and use the code BoredGamer to get a discount. I also use NordVPN, which I've decided to continue to support, as they appear to have one of the best VPN services currently available at an affordable price. If you're looking for a VPN, consider them. Links below. Thank you so much for watching my video to the end. If you would like to share my video, comment, subscribe, like, all that sort of jazz, ring the bell, that all helps content creators. Also, if you want to further support the channel even more, there's Patreon, there's direct donation, there's the YouTube join button as well, which gives you access to some more sort of like exclusive content from me. Thank you very much for watching. You take care, and I'll see you in the verse.